Okay, yeah, and it can be really hard to pick just one of those, right? I mean, it's really just picking pet peeves or things that get on your nerves. It's really hard to narrow down. One of mine, and this is just one, there's many, and this is not ranked on a scale of importance, just one that I thought of this week, would probably be talking with your mouth full. That's really annoying. That really gets on my nerves. I mean, just wait a second. You don't just wait a second to swallow and talk to me. It's really okay. You don't have to, it's just so frustrating. But whatever. So that happens, and I don't care for it, but that's all right. I understand it. I try to get over myself because that's just me, and that might not be your thing, but that's all right. I'm not even sure where I picked that one up, but it stuck with me to this day. But we all have stuff, right, that gets on our nerves that we either have to learn to live with or we just spend our days ticked off over, right? Where it's like they do that one thing and it's like it just ruins your whole day, right? Especially road rage on the roads there can be really frustrating, right? When you get past and like, oh man, that's going to ruin this whole however long I have to be on this road when I see this guy ahead of me, especially on 7. That's the worst because they're going to pass you on the double, right? And then he gets back to single lane and you see them like 2 cars ahead. Like, why did you even waste your time? We're all right here together. Anyway, whatever. So, so it can be really annoying. So it can either derail your whole day. You're just like, yeah, all right, I'll have to get over that. But what about the big stuff, right? What about the big stuff that we deal with? What about the things that people do that really hurt you, that really cut you to the bone? And if we're honest, what about the things that we ourselves do that cause that same amount of hurt to somebody else? What do you do when you're hurt? What do you do when you've hurt others? A lot of times people do this. I've seen it happen, and I've been guilty of this. We can find ourselves spending our lives alone because of that hurt, right? Sometimes we surround ourselves with people who'll simply put up with us instead of actually engaging with somebody. We spend our lives living in this ever-shrinking circle of people who will tolerate us or only come around once in a while because they feel guilty and not because they want to be around us. Those hurts in our lives cause us to really have our social circles shrink. And we do it to ourselves, and we do it to others. It happens over and over and over again. The alternative to that is one that we don't often do, is to be able to break down those walls around us that we erect around ourselves and begin to find a way to give and receive forgiveness no matter what the cost. That's a lot harder. That's a whole lot harder. So today, we're going to look at the life of a man named Jacob that we've been traveling through in this series called Coming Home. And we're going to see, how did he respond to someone he had hurt in his life? How did they find a resolution to their conflict, and how we could apply it to our lives today? And we're going to be in Genesis chapter 33, verses 1 through 11 this morning. And if you've missed the first 2 weeks, go back and watch it on our website. We've got it there for the full story, but I'll give you the really brief synopsis here, because what we've seen so far is that this guy named Jacob, he's got a sketchy past, right? He's had to leave home because of things he has done, and now he's been called back to where he started, and he's begun to see, he's begun to hear, he's begun to know a lot about himself, but a lot about the God that has changed his life. And that journey that he had been on, away from home and back to home, has led him to confront pieces of his past. It's led him to confronting his manipulative father-in-law. It's led him to wrestling with God. It's led him to dealing with an estranged older brother who at one point had vowed to kill him. We saw last week how Jacob succumbed to fear over seeing this estranged brother, this one that he was sure he was doomed to die because of. He knew he was going to have to come back. He knew he was going to have to deal with this relationship, and he was in fear over that. And so he began to plot a way to kind of make the situation smooth. How do I smooth this out so that we can all get along, right? And while he is trying to figure that out, so he's trying to figure out a way to get out of the situation and not deal with the root cause, he finds himself alone in the desert, wrestling with God. The end of that wrestling found himself a broken man, clinging to God and being transformed by the experience. Now, let's jump in. That's the recap. Genesis 33, 1 through 3 is where we're going to start today. We're not going to jump into that verse just yet. Let's get our story hats on, and let's dive into where we left off last week. So, Jacob's experience wrestling with God has changed his mind, it's changed his body, it's changed his very heart. And as the sun rises that day, after his experience wrestling with God, as the sun rises in the east and starts to cast shadows from the mountains surrounding him, he gets up off the ground and shakes the dust off his robe. In the heat of the fight, he had lost his staff, and now with the limp that he had had from God disjointing that bone, he needed it more than ever. So he spots it over by a bush, and he limps his way towards that staff, and he picks it up, and he looks around. This place would be called Peniel, meaning the face of God, for he had wrestled with God face to face, and he lived to tell about it. So he climbs to the top of the closest hill nearby. He struggled with each step as he adjusts to walking with this new disability. And as he climbs, he thinks of the night before. What an incredible, what an almost unbelievable experience, right? I mean, his wife and kids are never going to believe this. They're going to think he got drunk and fell over a rock. That's what they're going to think happened last night when he wrestled with God. But it was real, wasn't it? God had met him there. He had taken hold of him. He had broken his body, yet somehow in the breaking, he had been made new. He is Israel now. That's what God had called him, which means God fights for, or God fighter, depending on the circumstances. What exactly that meant, he's not quite sure, but he knows that through it, he's being blessed, and he knows that God is fighting for him, that he has a purpose and a plan over his life that's bigger than he could have ever imagined when he left home years and years ago. But now, he's on the cusp of being back, and now he's on the cusp of meeting his brother. Esau is coming. Now, what could he do with a broken hip against this fierce, older, stronger, bigger brother and over 400 armed men coming his way? And the answer to that was pretty much nothing. He couldn't do a single thing about it. And as he's standing on top of that hill, looking over and watching the sun wash across his face, the other realization that washed over him was maybe that was the answer. Maybe that was the answer. He had come to the end of himself against God, and he had found grace. So maybe that was the path forward with his brother too. And so as he's processing all this, verse 1 says he lifted up his eyes and he looked. And behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. This was it. This was it. 20 years he had avoided this. For 20 years he had on replay in his mind the image of his furious, vengeful, stewing older brother who he had lied and cheated his blessing away from. And now he sees him face to face again. And he realizes this time there's nowhere to run. He's stuck. Before he had wrestled with God, he had sent animals ahead. It's kind of like a guilt offering, right? To cool his brother's temper. But he's not sure it's worked. He doesn't know. And now after his encounter with God, he's also sure, I don't know if it really matters. So he calls his family to him, and he arranges them in groups in order of importance. He puts his servant wives and their children first, and he puts Leah and their kids second in a grouping, and then he brings Rachel, his beloved, and his son, Joseph, his most special son, last. Now, Jacob, the old man, would have stayed behind with Rachel and Joseph while the others went ahead. But Israel does a new thing. Verse 3 says, he himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. 20 years before, he had stolen his brother's 7-fold blessing. And you might miss this if you just read it in certain translations, but it's 7 times that his father blesses him. 7 times the blessing that his brother deserved, he was blessed. His dad had said, may God give you abundant provision. May peoples serve you. May nations bow to you. May you master your brothers. May your mother's sons bow to you. May they be cursed who cursed you, and may they be blessed who blessed you. 7 blessings that his dad gave him. So with each step closer to his brother, he bows 7 times. He returns to his brother in one symbolic fashion what was stolen from him. Instead of lording over his brothers, the one who is supposed to be master over his siblings, he sticks his face in the dirt in complete submission. He's been humbled by God, and so he humbles himself in the face of his brother. The offender, the liar, the trickster, the deceiver, the one who had hurt his brother so bad, realizing the pain and the heartache that he had caused by his lies and by his deception, places his life completely in the hands of the offended. He had come clean with God, and now he's coming clean with his brother. You see, coming home means that we when we encounter the love, the grace, the forgiveness of God, we give up the power that we hold over others, recognizing the hurt that we've caused, and seek to make things right. Before wrestling with God, Jacob was looking to appease his brother, to just get out of the punishment. He's like, how can I get out of this situation? I just don't want to have to deal with this, right? But now, since he's encountered God, he's seeking reconciliation and restoration of what had been lost, of what had been taken by him. That was his brothers. But who's the one he's about to reconcile with? Jacob's got it in his mind. He understands he's had an encounter with God. He knows he's got to reconcile with his brother. He's got to make things right? So, but what about that fierce older brother? What had been happening with him? We don't know, right? When you go back in the story, you read, it's like Esau drops off the face of the map. So let's catch up a little bit. Nights before Jacob is wrestling with God, Esau is sitting in a tent near the desert, miles away from his boyhood home. He's gazing into the fire and thinking about his family. He's thinking about his mother that, for reasons he never understood, favored his younger twin brother. He's thinking about his father, who he loved so much when they go on hunts together, and he just so appreciated the time spent. And they were like just father and son. They couldn't break that bond between them, but he had gotten so old so fast. He thought about the favorite son, his little brother. He thought about the heel grabber, the stew maker, the blessing stealer. And he remembered that burning hatred that he had in his heart, like that smoldered like the embers in the fire that he was staring at, and how he had made a vow to kill that little brother the next time he saw him. But, lately, as the years have passed, time has worn him down, that burning's gone away a little bit. How would he respond seeing his baby brother after all these years, really? Could he bring himself to go through with what he had promised? And as he was pondering all these things, strangers pulled up in his camp, and they brought him news that he was shocked to hear. His baby brother was back, coming back into the country that he left. And not only was he back, that he had done really well for himself. He had wives, he had children, he had wealth, he had everything a man could want in his day. And he's thinking in his head, so the favored son still finds favor. How different they were, yet really how similar. Esau had scraped and scrapped for all he had gained. After being cheated out of his birthright twice, he had married, but it was to local girls that his parents didn't approve. Right? I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, where your parents are like, no, you should not be marrying that person. He was like, yeah, well, it's going to be all right. I like him. We'll make it work. He married him. Like Jacob, he moved away too fairly soon after that. Not quite as far away as Jacob, but he went across the river and a few mountains. He found a place of his own. Being a strong man, he attracted strong men. And he made a name for himself in the desert. Over the hard years, he built up this large tribe, not just with his kids, but also with the strongest of the land. They had scraped together, they had clawed together, they had fought alongside each other, they earned each other's respect along the way, and it had taken all these years. But here he was, the chieftain of this large tribe, and he had come to be at peace with his life. So after hearing the news of his long-lost brother coming home, he mounts up with 400 of his best men because it was finally time to settle things. You can imagine if this was a modern movie, this would be an old Western, right? This has to be an old Western. And you got to imagine Esau's riding back into town on his horse, and you imagine the, right? This is what I'm seeing when I'm reading this, right? So he's coming back. It's finally time to settle things. And after a day or so, as he's riding back, he sees this strange sight. He sees a herd of well-fed animals and shepherds guiding them, coming his way, and he kind of slows down. He says, I don't really know what's going on here. So he doesn't know what to expect, and they come up and they call his name, and he's like, well, all right, I don't really know who this guy is, but sure, come on over. And the guy comes over, and he says, my Lord Esau. All right, that sounds nice, right? Your servant Jacob, he sends greetings to you, and he's coming behind us himself to greet you, just a few days' journey away. All right. I heard Jacob was bad, but why is he sending me gifts? What's this about? I mean, the last gift he gave me was a bowl of stew, and that did not turn out well at all for me. So what new trick might he be playing here? He takes a flock, he adds them to his army. They march on to find out when he encounters another group of livestock and another group of shepherds who says the exact same thing. They go on another day and the exact same group comes up, or not the exact same, but a similar group comes up and says the exact same thing. And by this point, he's bewildered. He's like, what in the world is going on? I got to find little brother to find out what is happening. Let's get to the bottom of this situation. So the next morning, he crests the hill and he looks over the valley and he sees Jacob. At least he thinks that's him, right? Because it's been years, and time does funny things, and he's walking with a limp now, and he's got a weathered face, but no, there's no mistaking. That's the brother I know. So he heads down the hill, and he watches with fascination as his little brother, that thorn in his side, all these years later, actually bows down to him as he approaches. Not once, not twice, but 7 times he bows down. The last with his face right in the dirt. And Esau, as he sees him, his heart burns again as he sees the face, as he sees this little brother laying on the ground. And so with the dust swirling between them, he can't contain himself. He runs over, he lifts his brother up, and verse 4 says, he embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him. And they wept. The same neck that had once been covered by goat skins to fool an aged father was now being hugged by the brother he robbed. The kiss that was given, repayment for the kiss that he had given to his father at the moment of stolen blessing. Yeah, Esau's heart burned, but not with hate anymore, but with love. God had been working in his heart too after all these years. And he knew in that moment that a love like God's is greater than any offense. With tears streaming down both their faces, blurring their vision, Esau looks up and he sees his nieces and nephews. He sees his sisters-in-law. He sees a family reunited. What a blessing. You see, coming home means not only seeking forgiveness for the wrongs we commit, but giving it. By allowing God's love to wash the hate from us so we realize that the bond we share with him and with others is often so much more important than the offense that would seek to bind us. Now, as good as that moment was, there's still something lingering between them. Because what about these animals, right? What's been going on all these days? Jacob sends the animals. Esau's been receiving him. How do we reconcile this? What's going on with these things? And so we read the answer here in verses 8 through 11. Esau said to Jacob, "What do you mean by all this company that I'm at?" Jacob answered, to find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." Jacob said, No, please. If I found favor in your sight, then please accept my present from my hand, for I've seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. So please accept my blessing that is brought to you because God has dealt graciously with me and because I have enough. Thus he urged him, and Esau took it. The amazing things about these stories is the story behind the story. Jacob had sent the animals ahead before he wrestled with God as a bribe. That's what it was. It was a bribe. He was trying to get out of his situation. He wanted to pay off his brother's anger and avoid dealing with the consequences of his lies and of his theft. Sure, it might cost him some livestock, but it'd be worth it if it worked. At least it would get him off the hook. Maybe at best, it would earn him that forgiveness that he really was seeking after. Deep down, that's what he wanted, was forgiveness. So he thought, maybe I can give it back. And if I give it back, maybe that'll make things right. Maybe he'll forgive me if I act on that impulse and seek his favor. Surely even thousands of dollars worth of animals would cover the damages, right? Just to kind of make it right, just to make him feel good about it. But after wrestling with God and making things right with God, he finally understands that this bribe is not going to fix anything. But it's just another deception in a long list that he had already committed. Yet God knew all of this before Jacob had put his plans into motion. So God takes Jacob's plan and he redeems it and he makes it infinitely better. Jacob, as Esau sees him laying face down in the dirt, doesn't pull him up, smack him in the mouth like most of us probably would after all that he's done. He doesn't put a knife at his throat and say, you're finally going to get what you deserve. He forgives him. He showers him with love. Jacob is forgiven first. And now he's free to give because of that forgiveness. See how that works? The bribe God takes, Jacob's bribe, is now redeemed into restitution. He had been given all that he needs by God in that blessing to be set free from his past so that now when his brother comes to him, he can give him the animals as a means of returning the blessing that he stole in the first place, not to earn the forgiveness, but as means of restitution. The man who has spent a lifetime trying to outwork, outdo, outgain, outsmart so that he can have the blessing he so desperately needed, now, in the end, realize that he has been given everything he needs by God and he can finally let it go and finally give it back to the one it belonged to in the first place. I love the last three words he says. He says, please accept my blessing that is brought to you because God has dealt graciously with me and because I have enough. I have enough. Now, you could take that to mean he's talking about, I've got wives, children, animals, livestock. I got so much that I can give a portion away and still have more than enough. I don't think that's what he's talking about here. I have enough. So many of the hurts we carry or the hurts we cause is because we feel that we don't have enough. Coming home means knowing that we need to experience reconciliation. And the only way that's possible is by knowing that our enough is only found in God through a whole relationship with Jesus Christ. That's where our enough is. Not in our possessions, not in our wealth, not in our wives, not in our husbands, not in our children or our children's children, or our retirement package, or whatever you have going on, not our career, not friends, not anything. The only thing that is enough is through God in our relationship in Christ Jesus. That's it. I have enough, he said. I've been given the blessing that I've been seeking. And now the blessing that I stole from you, I want to give it back. Not because I have to, but because I want to. For believers, the charge this week is pretty simple, yet really hard. We are to be initiators of reconciliation in our lives. Too many of us live with this trail of broken relationships behind us that we'd either rather avoid or rather pay someone off so we don't have to deal with them, just like Jacob. But what does Jesus command us? Matthew 18, 21 and 22, when Peter asked this question, Peter said, Lord, when someone offends me, how often do I have to forgive them? And Jesus said, I don't say to you, you have to forgive them just 7 times, but 77 times. Another time when Jesus was asked about prayer, he leaves this important part in. He says, forgive us our debts as we've also forgiven our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. You see, we're prisoners who have been set free by a God who gives us the key to unlock the cells of other prisoners in our lives. Don't miss this. Right? Because we think, I should just do it because it's the right thing to do means. No, what you've been done is you've been set free. You've been given enough through your relationship with Jesus Christ. You've been given enough love. You've been given enough mercy. You've been given enough grace. You've been given enough all these things. You don't need to hold on to that offense that gives you power. You don't need to hold on to those things that you think gives you the authority in the relationship that's broken and saying, well, I can hold that over them. They've done me wrong, so now I can hold it over them because I'm in the right. No, you don't have to hold on. That is not your enough anymore. Your enough is in Christ Jesus. And so he sets you free so that you can go and unlock the cell door of that person that you've been holding prisoner and that has been held prisoner by their guilt and by their shame. Things they've done to you, things you've done to them. We all need these keys of someone unlocking and us doing the unlocking in other people's lives. You have to have it. Why does Jesus stress 77 times of forgiveness? Why does he say, if you don't forgive, you have to forgive so your Heavenly Father will forgive you? Because that's the key. That's the key. You can hold on to a grudge and die bitter and unfulfilled, thinking that all these close people I have around me that are going to gather around my casket one day, they're all I need. And God is saying, I've set you free so that you can set others free. Not just so that you'll see them around your casket one day, so that you'll see them in heaven with you one day. And you can rejoice together over that reconciliation that he has given you the command to go and initiate. It's simple, but it's hard. For non-believers, reconciliation with others starts with reconciliation with God. And it starts by understanding that we are all like Jacob. This whole story has been so powerful because we put ourselves in Jacob's place. We're the one who has stolen the blessing from others. We're the ones that if we're completely honest with ourselves, know that we lie and cheat and deceive even our very selves. We talked about that a few weeks ago. That we lie to ourselves about how good or not good we are. We're the ones that try to justify our own existence. And the reality is that we are Jacob, as we talked about last week. We are that deceiver. We are that liar. We are that thing. And I don't want to condemn you or make you feel horrible about it, but I want you to understand the reality because we all are that. We're not good people. We may strive to do good things, and that's great. But in the end, we're Jacob. And so what we have to do is understand that we have to have a relationship reconciled, and that relationship starts with God. And what the beautiful thing about the gospel is, what makes it the gospel, is that we don't earn our forgiveness. You don't have to do penance. You're not coming and saying a special prayer. You are not going and praying a rosary. You are not doing a set number of good deeds so that you can to give back what you stole from somebody else. No, what you're doing is you're coming to a God who you're laying face down in the dirt in front of and saying, I know who I am. Will you accept me? And realizing that God comes in the form of a man named Jesus Christ, who lives a perfect life, dies a perfect death, and is resurrected to new life so that when he sees you laying face down in the dirt, he doesn't come over and stomp on your head and say, you deserve to be there, eat more. He picks you up, he dusts you off, he kisses you, and he says, welcome home. Then, when you receive that forgiveness, does he say, now go and forgive others? I've given you the key. Go unlock prison doors. It starts with that forgiveness with him that he pours into you. That enough that you can only find in him and nothing else.